Well, hello folks, I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves what happened today, and what might it tell us about the coming days. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time and archived on YouTube under the channel L.A. Little. You can find me there if you miss it here. Today, last night we talked about the big event in Europe. We talked about Draghi, ECB. Would they announce? My point yesterday was that if they did not announce QE, these markets would sell off. Well, we had Draghi at ECB, and he did announce QE, said it was going to happen. We also had economic numbers, PMI. We had the manufacturing index. We also had the, what was the other one? I can't think of it now. But two reports, both of them bullish. We've had bullish reports outside the U.S. Europe rallies on Draghi, moves higher. We initially rally as well, but folks, last night the chart said that this market wasn't going to stay up, and that's exactly what it did. Back the other way. Nothing big yet, still nothing large. The only thing that sold off with any gusto was the small caps here, down about 0.5%. We actually saw gold take a pretty good hit again. It's down at those lows one more time. Silver the same way. Bonds got creamed, really got hammered. Bonds gave up that retest, regenerate they were trying to do on the bullish side. We saw the dollar up big, up over 1% today. Euro got smashed. Oil got hammered again. XLE sector totally demolished today. This market wants to go lower. When you get good news, and it was expected, and you can't go higher on it. As a matter of fact, when you reverse like we did today, that's telling you there's a problem. The problem is that we simply have gone up too fast, too far. And that's the issue, right? So let's start here with the Dow. On the Dow Jones, yesterday we had a test at the highs, and it failed, right? So the test was up here yesterday, testing these highs. You got a failure, you had lighter volume. Today, what do? You go up and you do it again. Exact same thing. You go up there, you test it again, lower volume one more time, and what do? You fail. 2 in a row. This thing wants to go lower. The market will tell you what it wants to do at critical points, right? That's when you need to look at it and you need to analyze what it's trying to say. Think about the market as a testing vehicle. It's always testing. You hear the term price discovery. What does that mean? It means the market's trying to figure out a fair exchange of price between buyers and sellers. How does it do that? Well, it tests. It tries to see if it can get higher, right? And if it can't, it's going to go the other way, right? Look at these long tails up here. This is going down, right? It's telling you it's going to go down. It doesn't tell you how far. That's why you have to look at support, anchored support and resistance, to determine what kind of retraces you're going to get. And in the case of the Dow, on this time frame, it's not bad, right? It's just a little bit lower. So yeah, you can come down into here. I suspect this is what it wants to get after. But yeah, a decent retrace the first time. Nothing big. But if you look over at the weeklies, and this is what I've been harping on for a while now. If you look at the weeklies, there is no support for a long way, folks. The TA Today algorithms, the algorithms I wrote, they find the best support and resistance zones. And one of the factors is how close is it to current price. That is one of the criterion for determination. And when it gets overridden like it is now, and you find support way down, away from price, that's just telling you that there's a lot more risk in this on this time frame. In other words, it can come all the way back down here. So when you're looking at these markets, you have to try to measure your risk, your reward. You have to measure that and have some understanding of what it looks like. And in this particular case, you know, we could come a long way down. So the Dow, another test failure at the highs. S&P 500, what does it do? Okay, so now this isn't really so much a candlestick pattern. This is more of a bar chart type pattern, you know, a Western civilization type pattern. They call it an outside day. And essentially what you do is you go over the highs, you go back underneath them. It's an outside reversal is what it's really called. You go over the highs, you go back underneath them. And the key is to close under the prior day's lows. Prior day's lows, 1998.14. Where do we close? 1997.65, underneath them. Volume expands. This one also wants to come back. It's telling you it wants to try to trade down. It's going to try to do it tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, you know, the last big piece, I mean, this whole week's been cram-packed with economic numbers because it's the first of the month, and that's always the biggest part because you get all the flash PMIs. You get, you know, some, in this case, you get all the ECB, the BOE, the Bank of Japan, BOJ, and sometimes Australia as well. And I think sometimes Canada actually gets mixed in on the first week, but you get a lot of data at the first of the month. So this week, a lot of data, almost all of it good, right? But September's living up to its history, and that is that it's a tough month for the market. You've run up into it. You've done it with an angle of ascent that makes no sense, right? You can't hold that kind of an angle of ascent. It's going to have to go sideways or down. So the question will be is how does it come down? And if you look at this, your support is quite a ways back, right? So if it does that, it's going to break this resistance zone, and it's probably, I mean, that retest regenerate zone, and it's probably going to break that one as well if it comes in lower. And that's going to be really the test, is how does it come back into these. I suspect just like on the Dow, what it's going to target is this big breakdown bar it got over. And that's probably, you know, where these things are going to try to come to. That is at the bottom of that anchored support zone. That's the S&P 500. Now the strongest ones have been the NASDAQ. And as we talked about last night, Apple's putting a crimp in that. So if we look over at the IXIC, the NASDAQ composite, the broad composite, you know, what did it do? Well, it's not quite the same story. Matter of fact, this is even a little bit more bearish in my opinion. And that is, well, I shouldn't say that because it didn't get the volume expansion. But you didn't have the outside reversal. You simply went down, you closed lower. That also says this one wants to come back. And where would this one try to come back to? These swing point highs. You got some gaps on the way. You get under this bar here, which is about 45.47. This one is 45.46, so somewhere around 45.45. Crawl up underneath there. You're going to try to come all the way back down. And support here isn't for another 100 points. I wrote an article today. It appeared on Market Watch. You can check it out here about Apple's sell the news trade being preempted. And what I was talking about was the situation in the Apple stock. If I pull this back, put Apple on a monthly, I mean on a daily for a month. Apple came off the top. I explained this last night. If you didn't get to see it, go back and review last night's show. It came off the top, showed volume. When that happens, what is it going to do? It's going to trade lower. Right? Now, it can crawl back up there after it, you know, blows off whatever it's going to blow off. But folks, you get this kind of volume expansion, that kind of a wide price spread, heavy destruction of price on heavy volume off the top. That's a death sentence. you know, for this time frame, that's a death sentence. And it's going to keep it down. It's going to put pressure on it. And Apple is a large weighting in the NDX. That's going to push this market lower. It's going to put pressure on it. I told folks yesterday that it would probably bounce off the 80 number, the 98 number. That's what it did. Got its bounce, traded down there this morning. We put it on like 15-minute, maybe a 10-minute chart. So it trades down first thing this morning, clips that area, you know, gives anybody who wants to buy it a trade there. I'd also told them it'd get up to about 100, maybe 101, gets right up to 100, and actually if you look at it closely, you can see what happened. Look at these two bars over here. Look at the intersection of those two bars. You know, when you're trading intraday, it's no different on a neoclassical perspective than when you're trading anywhere else. Look at the intersection of these two bars. Let me draw it in again. That intersection with that kind of volume, that's where they blew it out at the very beginning of the day yesterday. When you get that kind of a move, getting back over this zone right here is going to be very tough. And what'd you do? Every time you came back up into it yesterday and today, they sell it back down. That's going to be a tough spot to get back over. In the meantime, this thing wants to trade lower. If it trades lower, it's going to put pressure on the NASDAQ. It's going to put pressure on the NDX. NASDAQ trades lower, wants to try to get under that 45 area. And that should be coming up tomorrow. If we look at the NDX, same sort of thing. NDX trades, actually NDX was a little bit better because it didn't do an outside bar and it did close inside the prior day's bar, so that was not quite as negative yet. The big negative has been, still is the Russell. Russell trades down to the next lower level, right? It gotten over this area, it trades back down into that level. Russell wants to trade even deeper. This next support zone looks like where it's heading. If the Russell does what the others are trying to do, it's going to try to come all the way back to 1137. All the indexes indicating more than likely lower prices. We got excuse me, unemployment number tomorrow. Have no idea what it's going to print, but whatever it prints, it's probably going to be sold. If you look over at the world markets, now the world markets, as you know, have been much stronger, and those markets are still trying to hold us up, but they're all starting to come off now. So if I look at the all ordinary, starting to come off. If I look at the Indian market, also trying to come off a little bit. If I look at Brazil, comes off. Right across the board. Canada, the same thing. The China large cap 8 shares. Let's get that one up. That one actually pushed higher last night. I expect they'll get some pressure tonight. The Hong Kong shares, though, did a little doji over and under on less volume. That suggests they're going to try to come back. So anyway, just across the board. Now, where we had a bright spot is where, of course, everybody has been selling. And it looks like we're having some video problems tonight, huh? I don't know. It looks like not video, but voice. It looks like the voice is coming across. I'm not sure why we're getting bad video. I'm sorry for that. We'll see if it gets corrected. If not, I'll re-record the show and rebroadcast it and put it on YouTube. So let me type that in here. So from that perspective, we'll see if it, we'll see if this market can trade down. I suspect it's going to. When we look at the European market, they're, given the Draghi, ECB action today, they traded higher. The CAC was the strongest. Let me type this in right quick. And they look like they're going to try to, they traded into the swing point high, had the volume, looks like it's going to try to get over it. London, the FTSE gets over the high, back underneath it, has slightly more volume, looks like it will try again, and the DAX actually is trying to do the full retest regen off that swing point low. So from that perspective, it looks to me like we're going to see this market try, in general, try to trade lower. Most of the strong markets trying to pull back, the weak ones trying to push up, but the weak ones probably get hit tomorrow. Okay, so that's the world market. So in summary, in general, we're going to see the markets attempt tomorrow to pull back farther. If we look over at some particulars, let's look at the OX market. On the OX market, we've got a 2-bar reversal on the EEM. So over, under, less volume. Lighter volume. I don't know if that's an extended move. It's a pretty good move, so I wouldn't be surprised to see those try to pull back. If you look at the currencies, Euro just got crushed today off of Draghi's notation of what's coming in terms of quantitative easing. The strength in the dollar put pressure on gold, presses gold lower, but it had less volume. It's under, back over. This gold market is still going to try to hold those lows. The bond market, hammered as I said earlier, breaks down underneath this swing point high, loses it, right? No retest regen there on the bullish side. That one's going to try to push lower. And then if we look at oil, oil comes down, nothing big, but where the real pressure from oil was not here, but maybe on the peace outlook in Europe, and that's where oil got hammered, and it was in the stocks themselves. XLE comes off with volume again. XLE now is inside this high of the low. This thing's going after the lows again. XLF, 2-bar reversal yesterday and over under today. XLI, swing test high failure, swing point high test failure. It's going to come back in. And you can go across the board here. All of them showing some sort of weakness coming. XLI gets over the top, back under. Yesterday was a 2-bar, today is an over under. XLV, which has been the strongest, 2-bar reversal today, and comes off with a reasonable price spread failure. Where's the strength? Still in the transports. Still hanging in the transports, still has volume, still pushing new highs. That's because of transportation cost coming down. The SOX, what does it do? SOX goes over the highs, back underneath, less volume. That's a failure at the highs on the SOX. And again, you just go across the board. So this week, packed full of news. The news has been good, right? Looks like this market should have traded higher. But early this morning, you could see something was wrong when the ECB announcement came out. First, there was all the cuts that they did in terms of interest rates and all of that. That comes out first. There was no news on ECB quantitative easing. When Draghi started his press conference, that was the first thing he talked about. QE, it's coming. Market tried to shoot up, tested those early highs, this is pre-market, and couldn't get over them. And that muted response gave you some indication of something being wrong. And then what do? As usual, bulls get a hold of this market, start pushing it higher. Let's look inside the day and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I pull over here and pull up the SPX, you're going to see the bulls get a hold of this thing, they drive it up. I'll pull it back 5 days. They drive it up, they make new highs, and what do? They give it all back up, right? They go all the way back down, test underneath the last 2 days' lows. If you pull this back 10 days, you can see it's not that far down here to get back to something more serious. And then if you go back 20 days, if it gets under this area, right, I don't see anything until you get way back down here. So give up, this thing wants to trade lower. What do? They press it up, they trap a bunch of people into buying it, and then they flip it around, they sell it hard again. The only surviving gap down here was closed already. That suggests that this thing's going to try to get lower. I suspect this area is going to be the key area, and we'll see how it deals with that. So that was the story today. You know, trap them like, you know, rats, and then squeeze them back the other way. And these markets have a habit of doing this. They get you going one way and they don't let you out. They get you going this way, they don't let you out either. And that will probably be true tomorrow. I suspect you're going to see this thing gap down in the morning, keep going. That'd be my guess. All right, that's it for this evening. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, I'm LA. This is, and it was, your daily NeoTA wrap. Have yourself a great night, and I'll see you next time. Good night.